Python is one of the top programming languages in the world today. It is extremely popular among hundreds of thousands of users worldwide. Since it has a lot of usage in multiple domains, the learning curve might get steep if one doesn't know how to get started with the language. Now, in this video, you will be introduced to Python and the right approach you should follow to learn the programming language completely. Breaking things down into simple, bite-sized chunks is very much essential if you're new to learning Python, and the aim of the video is just that. It is vital to approach Python in a structured manner and then continue learning by considering practical usage to always complement your theoretical learning.
Before we get started, I want to introduce you to Great Learning Academy. This is a free initiative by Great Learning where you can have access to over 200 plus courses with 1000 plus hours of free content on all of the trending high demand domains absolutely free. Register now to complete the course and get your free certificate of completion as well. Check out the link in the description box of the video below for more details. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. This is done to make sure you do not miss out on any of the new updates or video releases from Great Learning. And of course, guys, if you enjoy this video, show us some love and do like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, right? So make sure you share this video with your friends, colleague, and everyone who can make use of it. And at the end of it, make sure to comment on the video if you have any queries or any suggestions, and I'll be more than happy to respond to all of your comments.
So alright guys, welcome to this video where we will be covering how you guys can go on to learn Python in a step-by-step fashion. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it really is an important thing for you all to understand that learning a programming language is actually a challenge in its own. You have to think about so many different things. First of all, you'll have so many different approaches you guys can take to learn a programming language as well, right? Now, to make sure that we've kept this video aligned with all of you guys who are complete beginners, and of course, even if you are a person who's intermediate learner of Python as well, this video will be of good use for all of you all, right? So guys, without further ado, let us get started to take a look at the agenda. Now, as you will see, ladies and gentlemen, the first item of the agenda says why learn Python. Now, I think that's really an interesting thing that you guys have to understand. If you've clicked on this video, I am sure you might know one or two good facts about what Python is, why it might be popular and all of the reasons that support those, conditions, right? But what is more important that you have to understand is why Python is considered to be the #1 language out there right now. Why is Python development jobs, just springing up every now and then and leading to creation of thousands of jobs every year? And of course, this kind of curiosity, to satiate this kind of curiosity is something which is very important, because once you understand why Python, in fact, for your first programming language maybe, then you will get a clear picture. Then I'm sure you guys will be interested to understand more about the language. That brings us to the second item of the agenda. Now, in the second item of the agenda, we're going to take a look at some of the key skills that are required to get started with Python. Now, these are not technical skills. These are not the skills that you would write some code and practice or anything. No, these are some of the skills which you will go on to learn as and when you are completing your understanding of Python programming language, as and when you're solving practical problems, right? Now, these are very, very important skills, so make sure you guys are paying attention at that point of time as well. Now, take a look at the third item on the agenda. On third item of the agenda, we have Python libraries, right? Some of the really popular ones. Now, of course, Python has thousands of libraries. It becomes impossible to just pick a couple of, just pick a handful and tell you guys that, hey, these are the most popular ones, because even in its most simple state, if you consider thousands of libraries, it becomes very difficult to say, hey, here's 10 now, these are apparently the best, right? Of course, there are so many different ways you can pick up a popular library based on the number of people who are using, based on how popular it is with the community and all of that. So we are going to pick up a handful of libraries. We're going to understand them. We're going to find out what they do. Of course, all of this completely in brief. To a good extent of this particular video, we are not going to take a look at a lot of hands-on, but hey, at the end, I definitely want to show you one or two small snippets of Python to get you guys started with it, to get you guys started with the user interface using Python, and getting your hands dirty and messy with the code itself. So we're going to do that. And at the end of the session, ladies and gentlemen, there's an important thing that you guys have to understand here. We're going to be checking out Python developer salary. Now, I think the salary aspect is something which constantly has me in awe for this particular domain, because at the end of the day, if you're a Python developer, step one, you're making a lot of money. That is for sure. The second thing is, if you're a Python developer who specialized in a couple of libraries or specialized in a domain, you're making a lot more money. And then if you are an experienced Python developer and if you're looking forward to switch jobs, you will realize the amount of hike, the salary hike percentage on an average is really, really high for your roles, because you are an expert in Python. Right now, there are so many fascinating things such as this that we're going to be covering all through these 2 hours. So it's going to be a really interesting session, guys. Let us get started, without further ado, right? Before we go on to dive right into the heart of the session, before we go on to understand why we require Python, I think it is important for us to take a quick did you know and to cover some really fascinating facts about the world of Python programming, right? Look at the subheader. It says Python is the world's most popular programming language. I think this is a fact which you might already know, and if you do not know, yes, that is a true statement. There was a time when Java was the top programming language, and then Python slowly came along and eventually it overtook, and it is just shooting for the stars right now. That is how popular Python is. I'm not saying Java is bad. Java is amazing at the thing that it does. So many use cases, so many applications. If you think C or C++ is old, that Python is new, well, no. C and C++, are extremely important programming languages, still relevant in today's world. But at the end of the day, when you're taking a look at Python's popularity, there are so many reasons. The biggest reason that I can think of is how easy it actually is to write your Python code. And, here's an important fact, guys. You will not be writing in a lot of code to get your computer to do a lot of things for you. So a small amount of code will lead to a huge output, in equal metric scales. So that's an important thing you guys have to realize, right? A common question that I get is with Python, with the concepts of machine learning especially, do you have to write 500 lines of code to build a classifier? I think the answer is absolutely no. The actual machine learning part of it, where you're initializing the model, you're fitting the model, and you're actually performing predictions on it, it is literally 3 lines of code, ladies and gentlemen. It's 3 lines of code to get your machine to sort of, of course, there will be a lot of pre-processing and data analysis previously. After that, there's going to be result analysis. There's so many things. But at the heart of the solution when you're implementing, right, that kind of an easy approach that Python gives you, say, hey, you know what, here's me making a lot of things easier for you as a developer. That is what is loved in the community today, right? Perfect. Look at the first point, ladies and gentlemen. Popular streaming services, right? Now, a fantastic thing that you guys have to understand here is the extent to which Python is used everywhere. Streaming services are something which is very popular. I believe we are celebrating somewhere around 1 year of working from home, or of course we're not celebrating the pandemic, but everyone's at their home in their comfort spaces and all of that. So usually after work or before work, you tend to you might watch TV shows on Netflix or Amazon Prime or wherever it is that you guys watch, right? So, an important thing here for you to notice is that all these streaming services, they make use of Python to a very big extent, to a huge extent. The fun thing that I want to talk about is probably the biggest streaming service in the world today, which is that Netflix, right? Netflix is fantastic. Of course, I do watch a couple of TV shows there. Now, an important thing that you guys have to understand about Netflix is the extent to which they go to make sure that you guys stick to the Netflix platform and keep watching your favorite shows there, right? There's something called recommendation systems, ladies and gentlemen. A recommendation system basically, makes you want to stay on the app more. If you have used Instagram, Facebook or anything, you have this feature. It's a simple feature which you have not observed, the unlimited feed, right? If you keep scrolling, more and more content will always be pouring there to a good extent, right? Until you have run out of content, or until Facebook itself or Instagram itself says, sorry, you're done. You've watched everything for the last 2-3 days to do, right? Similarly, there is something on Netflix here as well, recommendation systems. If you have a favorite actor, maybe Brad Pitt or anyone for that matter, right? You'll have a favorite actor. Now you'll be watching a lot of movies and TV shows with that actor present in it. Netflix is intelligent enough, the algorithm sitting at the back end is intelligent enough to see, hey, okay, so this person likes a lot of Brad Pitt, so let me start recommending every single movie and TV show out there which has Brad Pitt's face on it. That is something which is not very complex to implement, I'll be very honest. That's what a lot of platforms does. This is where Netflix is amazing to my opinion. They go one step ahead and they start changing the thumbnails of that particular movies, even though the Brad Pitt might be like, he might have done a cameo, he might have just been on screen for 5-10 seconds in a movie. Now Netflix wants you to watch that because Brad Pitt is there, so what they do is they change the thumbnail of it and have Brad Pitt there. So the next time you click on it, you definitely want to click on it because, hey, I haven't heard of this movie, but there's Brad Pitt, let me watch, right? So you're getting you're engaging more with the particular platform. And how is all of this done in the back end, do you think? It's the fantastic programming language called Python powering a lot of these different things, right? Perfect. Now, guys, the second important point that I want to talk to you about, did you guys know that actually Python, the programming language itself, did not get its name from the snake? Now, whenever I have been asked or whenever I have given talks or anything like that, they usually ask me, hey, you know what, I'm learning Python, but why did someone name a programming language after a snake, right? The fact is, Python was not named after a snake. The programming language, right? The person who invented Python, Udo van Rossum, he's a fantastic programmer. You have to watch his interviews. He's an amazing guy. So this person actually used to watch a TV show. That TV show was called as Monty's Python Circus. It's a very old TV show. It's actually really funny. It's a nice TV show. And in that it said Monty's Python Circus. So he just took the middle name from it as a tribute to his favorite TV show and he called the programming language as Python, right? So you know something new now. Python was named after a TV show, right? And TV shows today work based upon Python. How cool is that, right? Perfect. And the third thing, ladies and gentlemen, the third point is something I think is pretty common. It's pretty well known to everyone right now, right? This happens to me as well. This happens on all of the talks that I usually give, right? Usually it's an audience, 300, 400, 500 people. Nothing during the pandemic right now. It's all been virtual. But then again, whenever someone asks me a question, they say, hey, why is Python really popular? And whenever you talk about Python, right, you're just talking about Python, the context will shift, and at the end of the day you end up discussing data science instead of actually talking about Python as a programming language. So why does this happen? I think, first of all, the world of data science is absolutely fascinating. Being a subject matter expert in data science for many years now, I think it's really it's rewarding, first of all, to know that you can use a programming language to solve a lot of the world's problems in the world of information technology and all of that. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that as a domain itself, data science is mostly being powered by programming languages like Python, R programming language. There's so many different other business intelligence tools, data analytics languages. You have SQL for databases. There's a world of languages that is coming together, and each of these languages are the best at what they do. So you should really not be surprised when someone says data science is probably the best domain, right? Of course, in your opinion, you might have a different domain to be your best, but at the end of the day, it's usually how it goes. The world of data science and Python is closely knit, and it gets intertwined in conversation more than more than a lot of times, for sure, right? The next point that you guys have to take a look at, I think, is definitely an important one. As viewers, I'm sure you guys are watching this particular video to find out how you can learn Python step by step. But an important thing that you guys might not be concentrating upon is to understand Python in the terms of a company who's probably looking forward to hire you, or in terms of the industry that requires Python, or in the form of trends, right? See, every day things keep trending, things keep changing, and yesterday's new something is today's old another thing, right? So that's a very common proverb. Now, at the end of the day, in the world of IT, that is extremely relevant here. So for you guys to understand that every day there's a new problem coming up, and every day people are realizing Python can solve that problem, it is just leading to a huge spike in the requirement for Python experts right now around the world. The best part is the last point here: high paying jobs with constant requirement. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think I definitely have to speak on these last 2 points a bit more because I do believe that, see, now during the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of things have changed. Last year, this time around, everyone were panicking for their jobs, I'm sure. But then now things have started to get better. People are starting to get vaccinated. Of course, the pandemic is not yet over, so make sure you guys are, wearing all the masks and taking all the safety measures. But my point here being, right now, your job profile is actually open to every single continent across the globe. Now, before the pandemic, there might have been companies who said, right? So, if there's a company in Germany that you're very interested to apply for, there's a position in Germany that you want to apply for, there is a good chance that you might have been rejected because they're only looking for native people of that country to apply because they don't want the hassle of the visas and you moving there, all of that, right? But now everyone's working from their home. I am recording this particular video from my home right now, right? At the end of the day, you have to realize that now since everyone's office is basically their home right now, it becomes important that you have to understand that companies are opening up their job roles to everyone worldwide because regardless of where you are, there are certain jobs that which you can definitely go on to do, right? It's not like you're a news reporter. News reporter has to step into a studio all the time to record. I'm not sure if they can do it from their homes and that. But at the end of the day, if you're a programmer, right now, I sometimes find myself at a Starbucks or probably any other cafe near my place. I'll just have a coffee at hand. I start off my day. I'm working there. It's a pretty common thing. Now that is the advantage that you might not have after the pandemic ends, is my point here. Of course, the world is realizing that having the entire having your company hire from around the world increases diversity, which is an amazing thing. The second thing is you do find solutions to problems which you would have never thought of, right? Now, there are certain problems here at this part of the world which you might be really good at solving because you were born and brought up here. And as soon as you are put in a very different scenario, you can use the your solution approach from this country's whatever problems were there. I'm not talking about political or all those problems. I'm talking about everything else in the world of information technology. Take it there, implement it really better, on the other face of the globe as well, right? That opportunity you have right now. So I think for all of you all who have tuned in to watch this particular video, I think it adds a lot of advantage for you all to know that there is no better time than now for all of you all to get started with Python. Right now, we're still in the did you know section, and I'm sure you guys are really interested for Python, right? Because I remember the very first time I wrote my first piece of Python code, and from then, of course, it's been countless number of snippets of code until now. But I promise you one thing, at the end of it, at the end of this particular video, you will have a good step-by-step guide that you guys can use. This video has a lot of thought into it, a huge amount of research to make sure that we are providing you the highest quality of learning material possible, and these 2 hours will set you upon a journey of learning which will probably last you the next couple of months, the next couple of years, right? So I hope you guys are really excited for it right now. 1, you're learning the best programming language in the world. 2, that programming language has something to do with every other trillion-dollar company or business on the entire planet. 3, thousands and thousands of job openings are opening up every single week, every single month. Number 4, you have the highest paying job. I don't want to say the highest paying jobs, but they are amazing pay compared to any other programming language hiring for a similar or developer's role. Now, I don't want to anger any other crowd here, so I don't want a Java developer to head to the comment and say, hey, no, I make more money. Yes, good. A lot of people in a lot of different domains are making a good amount of money, but when you take a look at the entire average, the entire population, the numbers speak for themselves, and Python does provide these amazing 4 or 5 advantages that I told you about, right? Perfect, guys. The next thing that we are going to take a look at is something which is very interesting, and this is something which you guys should consider very seriously, because we are going to be talking about some really important points that will get you guys started to learn Python itself. But then before you step in and write that piece of code, because see, these videos, these highly informational videos and advisory videos for you all is not something that you would probably watch every 1 month or so, or probably watch every single time. So these 2 hours that you're putting in, you're investing in this particular video, I highly suggest you guys concentrate, because these 2 hours, sorry, as I told you, definitely is going to give you that kind of a push that's required to launch you into the world of Python itself, right? Perfect, guys, let's begin. All right, guys. The first reason of why I believe you guys should be learning Python definitely has to start with how trending it is, right? The amount of people that search for Python, the amount of people that are learning Python, the amount of people that are using Python right now range in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, right? So everyone, when you take a look at it, especially if you're on these if you're watching videos where people are trying to get into technical domain when they're from a non-technical domain, if it's a programming language, there is a common trend that's been developed in the world. So whenever someone gives out advice, they say, hey, start out with Python programming language. It's really easy to get started with. I think that is one of the reasons why it is trending a lot. But at the end of the day, it's not just one part of the world that is interested in Python. Everywhere, right? When you look at the Google search trends, which I'm going to show it to you in a minute, you have to understand that everyone is searching for Python across multiple search platforms, across YouTube, across wherever it is that they can find some content to use and learn, right? So that is an important thing for you to understand, because one, you know that it is popular and that there will be a lot of companies hiring for it, hence the reason people learning it. Two, this is also a slight disadvantage for you all, because it's not a huge disadvantage. I'll tell you why. It's a slight disadvantage because at the end of the day, you have a good amount of competition that you guys have to work with, right? Now, if you're learning the world's best programming language, and if you're attending an interview where probably there's a good chance 10 or 15 others who are also good in Python are joining you for the interview. So you have more competition that you have to beat right now to get your favorite job, right? Now, that's an important thing you have to keep in mind right now, because that as a motivation will help you get really ahead. When you know that, hey, there might be 15 people, they might be better than me, so let me work harder to make sure that I have a fantastic career in Python. That is an important thing you guys have to know, and that even rolls back to us looking at the trend chart as well, because every month or so, or usually every 3 or 4 months, there is usually a paradigm shift in the world of programming, where there is either a new library which is taking the center stage, or just like in the news all the time, the programming news, of course. And then there is the other side of things, where someone has built a really beautiful application, and that went highly popular, and that uses Python, right? So when you bring these two together, of course, the search platforms, search engine platforms are going to explode, because everyone, the person on the first side of things, the person on the other side of things, everyone is searching for it, and this is happening around the entire globe, right? So it's a good thing, having an amazing trend, finding new libraries, creating new ones, and at the end of the day, building applications using this blowing up is something which is really, really amazing, especially in the world of Python. Now, I told you about those Google trends. You guys remember? Well, here is actually an actual graph from that Google search, right? We have something here from 2004 all the way to 2020, or the start of 21, we can consider. When you take a look at it, back in 2004, Python was there. It was having it has a plateau of interest over time. So the same number of people are searching for it probably until I think 2012 or something, because after 12 it started to grow, and that growth has been predicted to last for somewhere around 20 years starting from 2014. So that's 2014, 2024, 2034. 2034 is a long way ahead, ladies and gentlemen. By the time, if you're a really good Python developer, you can make a lot of money, and there's a good chance you can retire and stay at home forever, right? You have to understand that. Look at the trends. I mean, this doesn't happen in a lot of programming language, and this is where if you take a look at Java as well, Java was somewhere around here, and then Python just overshot it. And it was like, hey, you know what? I am the big guy now, and that is a really fun thing to understand, because you know that the world wants this. You know that the world is looking towards this, and the moment that you started watching this video, I know for sure that even you are looking forward to learning and understanding Python as well, right? Yes. So whenever we say something, whenever I say something, I usually back everything up by data. I just told you that there's huge amounts of trends, and this is the data. This is actual real world data from Google, that's telling you that hey, people are actually interested. People are searching for it non-stop, right? Whatever tiny dips that you see, this doesn't matter. That would be an insignificant, a small part of the year where maybe productivity is a little low. Usually in countries where there's peak winter, as minus 20, 30 degrees Celsius, usually productivity seems to take a little bit of a hit. Companies close down, you cannot go to your office. All of those things will be the reasons. I'm not saying those are the only reasons, but look at the generic curve. If you were to plot one single line for the entire curve, I think it would just do that, right? Perfect. So that is one good reason of why you should learn Python. Let me tell you about the second reason of why you guys should consider learning Python. Look at all the domains that you guys see on your screen right now, right? It is extremely important at this moment in time itself that you guys, sort of understand that, hey, Python is not just data science. Python is not just machine learning. Python is not just AI. Python is so much more than that, right? In web development, let's consider the first domain and talk about it quickly. In web development, Python is really huge, right? So there are multiple libraries, Flask, Django, right? There are so many libraries which you can use to create beautiful looking websites, to have the front end done, to have the back end capability ready, and there's a good chance you can do a bit of full stack development by making use of Python itself. There are libraries which will hook you up with that kind of a facility to do it. That's the advantage. Here's a very fun question. How many of you all are joining in by using Mozilla Firefox browsers? If you guys are using Mozilla Firefox, let me tell you this. 230,000 lines of code, right? 230,000 lines of code are written in Python, and those lines of code are working right now to show you this particular video if you have tuned in through Firefox. Of course, Chrome also might be using something. Safari might be using it as well. I'm not saying they're not. It's just a fascinating thing that it's a verified fact that, Firefox does that. That's an amazing thing to know, right? Perfect, guys. Now, that is web development. We'll circle back to that in a while. Next, take a look at big data. Well, big data is a really fun term to talk about, because at the end of the day, it's a technology that aims to handle the world's problems, right? There's a very fun saying that says the entire world is a big data problem. It means that we are generating so much data that at one point of time it gets confusing about what to throw out, what to keep, what to analyze, what not to analyze, and everything, right? See, by the time I snap my fingers, by the time you heard that sound on the mic, just at the me holding my finger and snapping it, the world probably would have generated like what, 300, 400 terabytes worth of data. Just the moment I did that, just when it took my fingers to create that sound, 400 terabytes. Think about your laptop, think about your computer, think about your phone or TV you're watching it from. What's the maximum storage? Like 500 GB, 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, right? Again, that was 100 terabytes. Again, another 100, right? Every second, the world is just punching out a ton of data, and they need extremely powerful computing hardware, and of course, the programming languages that use this hardware to make the best out of it, to analyze the data. There was a time in big data before Python, of course, when it wasn't called big data anymore. People were just starting to throw any information away that they thought would not be of use to them. Especially small scale companies. If you're a person who's probably selling chocolates, you would not have any use for the amount of chocolates that you would have sold last year or the year before or 5 years before that, right? The data. You would probably delete it, throw out your file or anything, something like that, to make more room for new files. Physical files, right? Now it has come to a point where they realize that, hey, why you shouldn't be throwing out data from the last 5, 10 years or even 15 years, because you can use all of that to analyze, assess, and find out, first of all, where all the company went wrong. It's not only that, they can use your past data to predict what happens in the future of the company as well. That's a fantastic thing about data analysis and using a ton of data to do it. And that's really done well with big data. And of course, with the world of big data, it's usually a a setup where there's distributed computing, where you use the computing power of more than one machine at the same time. So there again, you have fantastic libraries like PySpark. Spark is a beautiful library from the Apache Foundation. PySpark is basically you using Spark and writing the code in Python language. That's why it's called PySpark. It's a fantastic library out there. So that's big data. And then when you really have to look towards game development, right? Game development, I think, is extremely fascinating. How many of you all who are watching this video are gamers right now, right? You might have played games on your phone, PUBG, Among Us. I think Among Us was exploding at the start of the lockdown. So there's so many games that you can build. And the best part is there's many 2D, 3D engines that you're going to use to build the games. That's one side of things. The other side of things is even those engines themselves are built using programming languages, right? In the case of Python for game development, there's multiple libraries. I think Pygame has to be a really popular library that a lot of developers in fact use. A lot of these game developers actually go on to start using before they move on to maybe other professional tools, or maybe tools which are proprietary to one particular game development company. Right now, for example, Electronic Arts, EA is a company. They might be using some sort of game development tools which is very different from what the other company, Rockstar Games, does, right? So you have to understand that kind of a thing where people will be using their own proprietary stuff, but then to get there you require all the basic knowledge of game development itself, and Pygame is a fantastic library which is going to help you in that regard, right? So we checked out 3 things. Web development, done. Python is amazing for big data. Python is really, really good for game development. What next? I think next it adds a bit of value to talk about the user interface and user experience of a particular application. So first, let's talk about it like a consumer, right? When someone tells you that an application is sort of beginning to, it's becoming addictive, it's becoming really nice, that they want to spend more time on the platform, it's usually that their comfort levels with the application has gone high enough that they want to keep doing it, right? Social media is a very popular example. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. When you think about it, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all of these platforms are wanting you to engage with their platforms, right? Why is it that, and how are they winning at that? They're winning at it, first of all, because they are giving you really clean, very well polished user interfaces. Nothing is confusing, nothing is really complicated, and at the end of the day, even a person who has never ever used a social media can actually get onto one of these platforms, get started like it's nothing. Probably within 5 or 6 mouse clicks, you can start finding friends and you can start adding them, seeing their life updates as well, right? 5 mouse clicks is all it takes to connect to someone probably sitting, at the other end of the world. And hey, that's how, relationships, that's how you build a network. That's why it's called the social network. And that's how you would probably, you never know, you could become a billionaire businessman just because you connected with someone on social media who had a fantastic idea as well. You never know. But that's the point here. Coming back to it, Python here in the field of user interface and user experience development is also really, really huge. There are multiple tools, there are libraries which will help you directly develop these kinds of feel-good experiences, right? A good user experience. UX literally stands for user experience. So to drive these good user experience, I think is the difference that's going to make it or break it for a couple of companies. Now, I have seen really amazing applications. Functionality wise, they are top notch. Ideas are absolutely amazing. So you'll be like, how did this entrepreneur even think about this? When you look at the interfaces, when sometimes things can get a little disappointing, you'll be like, okay, this is a fantastic app, but with this kind of a user interface, either it's very complicated or it's something very different or something, people will not want to use it. They want something which they can learn really quick, use effectively, and see to it that they're becoming popular while using it as well. The same goes for any other kind of social media or any other application as well. It's not just social media. Windows is a fantastic example. The Mac operating system, every time you click a mouse button, you're using a user interface. An interface has been given to you. You're not typing zeros and ones and talking to your computer anymore, right? That would be a hassle. You'll have to type in millions of zeros and ones. Now, that's the important thing. Every day things are being so much more convenient that you you stop appreciating things because it's just commonplace. But no, there are so many powerful things that govern the world of user interface and user experience that definitely deserves a highlight. So if you guys haven't done a bit of research, even though you might be a person who's into cloud computing or data science or whatever it is, I think for curiosity's sake, it's worth checking out the impact Python has in the world of user experience development, right? Perfect, guys. Next, let's take a look at data science. Data science, right? I absolutely love it. I've started my journey with Python just to get into the field of data science. It's been a lot of years. I don't remember when I started learning all of these things. And at the end of the day, when you take a look at how Python is intertwined into the world of data science, it's very close knit. There is no separating Python and data science out. Tomorrow there might be another programming language which can probably beat Python at everything it does, and even then I have a prediction in mind that there's a good chance that still data science might be the big guy then as well, right? So in the field of data science, again, there are a ton of libraries. I think to add to Python's popularity itself, data science had a lot to do in the back end. So if you're a person watching this particular video, if you're a person who's very much interested into the world of data science, I highly think that this video or this particular question that you might have saying how should I learn Python is going to be answered fantastically well. Regardless, again, if you're a person who's not into data science as well, since we're covering a good amount of domains here, every step of the way that we're going to take when we're going ahead will be to make sure that we're not just keeping one domain in mind, not just data science, but everything else, right? Because Python is huge in all of these domains, right? Perfect, guys. Now, I know for sure that you guys are clear with all the particular domains that we took a look at. And the next couple of points, I think, are these basically are the concrete reasons of why people pick up Python. That I'll tell you for sure. The first thing that you'll see there is interpreted language. Python is an interpreted language. Now, when we say Python is an interpreted language, what are we talking about? What does the word interpreted mean? I'll give you a very simple, funny example. So let's just say you guys have written 10 lines of code. In that 10 lines of code, at the 10th line, there is an error, right? At the 10th, the last line, there is an error. If you were to use programming languages like C, C++, or Java, of course, whenever you write the same 10 lines of code in that language and when you execute it, C, C++ or any of these compiler-based languages will not execute a bit of your program until all your errors are resolved. Until it is error-free, things will not execute, right? In the case of Python, it's a little different. With an interpreted programming language, the programming language will run everything fine from line number 1 to line number 9. And as soon as it sees its error on line number 10, it says, hey, there's an error on 10, please fix it so that I can complete my execution. So it's going to tell you that. This, trust me, when you go ahead with working on complex stuff, which I'm sure you guys will be doing 1, 2, 3 months from now, it's very important to understand, because if you're just having errors after errors and you're not seeing output, it tends to be a little demotivating. But in the case of Python, I think a huge motivation factor is when you write your first program and when you hit execute, it executes fine. It shows you that it's working as it's supposed to, right? It's that first moment when you probably rode your cycle, when you rode your bike, when you drove your car, something like that. It literally feels like that every single time when you go on to execute and something works well without an error, right? So that difference of code executing fine until there is an error is what Python does really well. So the first 9 lines, you know that it is working for sure, and you know that there is a mess up in line number 10, so you go on to fix that, right? It is making your job easier to fix errors which will stop your program from working, right? So that is textbook definition of making it easy for you. The second point in discussion here is that Python, is an easy programming language to learn. Now, I've told this probably 5 times now, but I think it's worth telling it another time, because the syntax of Python itself, right? Syntax is what you call, the rules that you have to follow to write the programming language, to write the programs. These rules are fantastic in Python in a way where most of it is common English language. If you're a person who can speak English, if you're a person who has the capability to read and write English, 90% of the chance, if you see a simple piece of code, you can guess what Python is doing right then and there. You might have never learnt Python. You do not know a word of Python. You've never worked on a programming language. But when you take a look at Python's programming languages, when you take a look at, of course, I'm not talking about really complex stuff. When you're taking a look at a simple code snippet, you can guess, and your guesses are right. This is a survey which was conducted to ask people of how easy it is to learn and ask non-programmers their opinion about the language. And about, I think, 9 out of 10 of them actually sort of understood what Python is trying to do, even though they had absolutely no clue what it was doing. That is an advantage, right? You already know something which you think you do not know. That is, again, textbook definition of making it easy for you to learn. There are programming languages. For example, think of C++. To input something and output something, you have to use things like C in, Cout, and all of that, right? So if you do not know what C in, Cout means, if you do not know what stdio or conio, all of these things mean, well, you have to learn it. You have to spend some time. So you have to understand it in depth. That's going to take a good amount of effort. But in the case of Python, if I say print and I'll just put whatever I want to print in 2 quotations and I hit enter and Python just outputs that on the screen happily, well, I am happy as a developer because I really didn't have to do much to get Python to input and output stuff, right? In that small, tiny demo that I have planned for you guys, we're going to take a look at that aspect as well. I'm going to show you how easy it is in 2 lines to input something, get an output or something. We're not going to be taking a look at a lot of programming, as I told you guys, but a simple snippet is something I want to show you guys, right? I'll show you guys practically how easy it is to learn. I think the third thing is what powers Python to the success that it has right now, right? It's built for dynamism. Now, an important thing that you guys really have to understand here is when the talk is about Python and its popularity, it is because of how quickly Python itself can catch up to how fast the world is running, right? Maybe today, let's just assume hypothetically that today Amazon is selling to 10 customers, right? Tomorrow, 1,000 customers, day after 10,000, maybe 10 million a day, right? So they're just growing in this hypothetical scenario. Of course, in the real life, it's the same. In that case, if you have a programming language which you've used, which works amazing for 10 people, but if it fails as soon as your company hits 1,000 people, that you have to cater for 1,000 people, but your programming language says, oh, sorry, I cannot do all of these things at once. Not fair, right? In the case of Python, it was built by the inventor. It was built by Guido, keeping this in mind. Hey, so today if I have 10, tomorrow if I see 10,000 or a million, my programming language has to have the capability to work that like it is nothing, right? Python is actually great at doing that. So if you have a product, if you have an idea, or if you're a casual learner who wants to know that, hey, if I learn something today, will it be outdated in the next 2 years? I think you have got the answer, right? The answer is no, because Python is built in a fantastic way to cope up with how fast the world is running. So if this is the world that's running, Python will be running alongside it. That's how I would want to say that point out. That is an important thing for all of you all that you guys should know about. So again, guys, I think you guys should take a note of all of these important points if you're very serious about having a career in Python, right? Perfect. And to take a look at the next point, the fourth point, some people have told me that this is the most popular reason why Python, is so popular. I'll tell you why. When something is open source, it means that there can be a lot of contributions from everyone around the world who want to build a product, but they're not looking for any sort of monetary benefits out of it. That's an open source platform. Python is an open source programming language. Of course, C++, Java, all of them. Java, I think at one point of time when it came out brand new way back, it was not open source and then it got open source. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, in the case of Python, it was open source from the day one it just came out, right? At the end of the day, when you take a look at an open source, an open source programming language, you have contributors sitting everywhere across the globe who want to help the Python community. So it's not like libraries are coming up magically, right? There is someone in the backend who's sitting and creating these libraries for every one of us to use. That itself, and they're not making money out of it. It's open source. It's everyone who's going to go and do it. If you're interested, in fact, you can go and create a library on Python and have it published officially as well. If you want to do that, done. It's possible. You're contributing something positive to maybe help other people use your libraries as well. That's how all the tiny libraries have become really, really popular. So understand this. You really don't have to pay the developers at Python to start using Python. You really don't have to pay the libraries. Of course, there might be a couple of paid libraries, but at the end of the day, 99.9% are all free. So you're going to be literally not paying anyone anything to go on to actually use the Python programming language. But there are one or two programming languages where you cannot say this is the case, right? Even though it's free to use, sometimes to add functionality to it, you'll have to pay. And I don't think that's the case with Python. So there is no catch that you started out with basics, you're a beginner, you're an intermediate user, then they're like, oh, you have to pay up to go on to use the programming language more and more. No, that's not the case. It's free to use. There's a good chance it's going to be free forever as well, right? So this is a very good reason. Understand that it is the future, and all the 4 reasons that you see on your screens is the reason of why Python is the future, right? I think the next thing has to be the common public opinion. This is a non-technical. This slide is a non-technical opinion from a lot of people that I asked a question saying, hey, why do you guys think Python is popular? The first point is its huge library, right? So it so happens, I'll walk you through this scenario, this situation, where if you're working with Python, you're trying to solve a real world problem, right? Things can get really complex when you're working on a big project. But with Python, things are really simplified because there is a library that will help you reduce your code length a lot. It will help you with a very different way of how you can solve the problem. And us Python developers, we have a common saying that says, if you have a problem that you can solve with Python, there is a library that will help you do it. It's a common saying that there is a library that will help you do it. That's how many libraries for how many problems out there right now, right? So this arsenal, these thousands of libraries give Python the power it needs, right? It's like all these are foundation pillars and upon which Python is sitting like a king. And I think it's really nice to have these the access to these libraries, because when you're solving problems, I usually look at the easiest way to how I can solve a problem, and I'm sure you guys can also relate to that, right? In that case, yes, when so many people, when the entire world looks towards a easy way, a fast way of how they can solve problems, having these kind of libraries is a huge advantage there, right? Perfect. That's point number 1. Point number 2, I think, is really important to know. It's the community around you, right? Python's programming language, in the communities out there, be it on social media, be it on other forums, be it anywhere, you'll see that everyone is welcoming, right? No one is, even Stack Overflow, it's a popular place where people go if they have an issue with their code, and there's like everyone pitching in to go on to answer those questions and all of that. But an important thing that you guys really have to take a look at here is how everyone is helpful to make sure the other person learns as well, right? It's not like, hey, that person is learning, let's stop that person, so like we are in the inner circle. No, absolutely not. When you start learning Python programming language, make sure you guys are a part of these Facebook groups of Python. You can take a look at multiple other forums and you can join in there as well. Whenever people ask even the most beginner questions, right, even a simple comma which is missing, no one will ever go at the other end and laugh saying, hey, you made a mistake. No, everyone is highly appreciative of that mistake, highly appreciative of the person who asked that particular doubt, because someone else will have the same issue. They are going to see it and their issue is resolved as well, right? So everyone is welcoming. You make a mistake, good, you're learning. That's how you're supposed to learn. And you'll see this from not just me, you'll see this from hundreds, if not thousands of Python developers across the globe. So that is this part of the community. I've been a part of this community for many years now, and I think it's absolutely fantastic to see how everyone is welcoming when a new beginner, or even when someone who has nothing to do with Python is just exploring to satisfy their curiosity is also welcomed, right? It's an amazing community, guys. You will definitely love it. And especially when you get a job as a Python developer as well, then the community goes into the professional side of things, and that itself is like another amazing thing on its own. So it's a win-win when you're learning, and it's a win when you guys go on to get your job as well, right? Perfect. Third thing, easy to learn syntax, easy to read syntax, right? So we already checked this out. I don't think I have to spend more time upon the same point again, because it's, if you can speak English, if you can read and write English, you can understand Python. That is how simple I would want to put it out, right? Perfect. Now, take a look at the last point. The last point there says that Python is a strongly typed language. Now, what is strongly typed language? It sounds so strong, right? Like, what does it mean? I'll give you an example. Let's consider another programming language, maybe C or C++, right? In these programming languages, whenever you have to use some data, so let's say I want to store name as a variable, and in that variable I want to throw in some data like maybe my name is Anirudh, so I want name equal to Anirudh, right? That will work in Python. That will not work in C or C++. There, in C or C++, you have to specify the type of data that you're giving. Now, if I'm entering my mobile phone, usually it's an integer, right? I don't have a mobile number that says 888.4, etc., etc. No, there's no dot, there's no floating point. It's a whole number. So it's an integer. You can guess it out, right? It's usually 9 or 10 digits. It's an integer. Now, if you're using C or C++, you have to manually tell C or C++ that, hey, I am using an integer here. But with a strongly typed programming language, there's many strongly typed languages in the world, and Python is one among that. And in the case of Python, I think the advantage here is for you guys to understand is that you don't have to tell Python what type of data that you're showing Python. It is intelligent enough to understand what it is seeing. So this will save you a ton of time, a ton of confusion, because Python itself knows. Are you putting in a string? Python understands. Are you putting in an integer? Python understands. Do you want to put 3.1415, whatever you want? Python understands that it is a floating data type. But then sometimes Python does get confused, in a very rare case. So you can explicitly tell Python, hey, buddy, you've got it wrong. It's an integer here. I'm going to force you to use it as an integer, right? So you can do that. And it's a fantastic thing. I believe that, when you're discussing all of these for a beginner, it will seem like, hey, is it required? But at the end of the day, once you go from being a beginner and make that jump to becoming an intermediate Python developer or intermediate learner for Python, all of these things you really will feel at that time. You're like, oh, right, I don't have to use data types anymore. And you'll realize, you'll see for yourself firsthand of how easy your life has become. That is the reason, I believe it adds a lot of value for you guys to be learning Python as well. So perfect, guys. We definitely covered a good amount of things that is required for all of you all to get started with the Python programming language in terms of why you even should have some interest into it. I believe with these points, they were convincing enough for you to go ahead. And in this section, right, so we're going to take a look at all the skills that is needed to learn Python. Now, learning Python, I can promise you one thing. It's really a fun thing. You're gonna learn a lot, you're gonna enjoy a lot, and when you're applying Python itself, if you're really passionate towards it, you will not be breaking your head about how you'll solve the problem. You'll mostly be thinking about how in 2 or 3 ways can you solve the problem. That is how fun Python will get you to go there. But at the end of the day, to reach there, you definitely require some skills. Now, I'm not, in terms of skills, I'm not saying you guys have to be extremely good at mathematics. You guys have to do this, have to do that. No. These skills that we are going to discuss right now are some of the skills that you will learn along the way while you're learning the programming language itself, right? So I'll show you what they are. These requirements for you to be a good Python developer are something that you guys should always be looking forward to. The first point there says data-oriented approach. Data-oriented approach, I think, is something which all of you all should, give it a thought, right? See, I'm going to take the example of data science. In the world of data science, as the name itself has data in it, there's a good chance you're going to be seeing a ton of data there, correct? So when you're looking at a ton of data, if you're not interested into it, there's not a lot that you can do. But if you are genuinely interested, if you have a passion to know that there is a lot of hidden insights in data which you can pick up and which you can use to even predict the future, right? Then you will know the power of the programming language and the power of data there. So you're going to require the thinking of how you can look at data in a different view. Maybe now you look at data like, oh, okay, I have 10 files in a pen drive. Then you're going to start looking at, okay, so if I have 10 files in my pen drive, how can I best use these files to have an impact on my life, to have an impact on my business, to have an impact on something? It's a really broad thought when you have to think about it as a beginner. But as I told you, once you become an intermediate developer, all these things you will start doing on your own. Out of curiosity, you will open up data sets to see what it is, what things are going on there. If you can analyze something, if you can do something, and if you can look at the data set with your naked eye and figure something out, that is something you will start doing if you're interested in the language, right? So, and if you pick up on that skill, well, I definitely think that this is a skill that's going to take you all the way through your complete career in Python. That's an important requirement that I thought you guys should know here. Perfect. The second point that I want to discuss with you guys is out of the box thinking. See, as I told you, Python is an easy to use programming language, of course, but the logic that goes on to use this Python programming language is still need to be figured out by the best developers, by you guys out there, right? The advantage with the syntax being easy is that you guys can have more time to work on logic. You guys can have more time to think about many solutions. Now, any programming language in today's world has been put in its place because it is able to solve a problem, to solve a real life problem, right? Or else why would people want to do anything if they're not solving a real world problem? In programming, I'll tell you this fantastic thing. If you have a problem, if a client walks in with a problem saying, hey, this is what I want to be done and this is how I want it to be solved, usually there is never one way to solve it, right? Think about walking from your house to maybe the nearest ice cream parlor near you, right? Now that makes me really want ice cream right now because it's pretty hot here in Bangalore. But yeah, no, you understand that, right? There's not one route that you can take. Probably if the ice cream store is maybe or 3 roads away from me, I can just walk through the shortest path. I can go 10 kilometers to the other side of the city and drive back directly there, and that would still make me reach the destination. I can take a flight from Bangalore to New Delhi, land in New Delhi, spend 2 days there, come back here and directly go to that ice cream shop. So that is me still going to the ice cream shop. Of course, one of these approaches is sane, the other one will sound insane, but sometimes it so happens you'll be put in a situation where the only solution you can think of is taking that flight to Delhi or something and then coming to the ice cream shop 200 meters from your house. The approach will look like that. You'll be like, this is the only way I can solve this. That is when all the other skills will kick in and say, hey, no, you know what? You can still find the shortest way that you can walk from your house to the ice cream shop and you don't have to take a flight to do that, right? So this out of the box thinking, when there's one problem, you have a ton of solutions that you can approach to solve that problem is it's a thinking. No one can actually teach you this, but they can tell you that, hey, this exists, start doing it, right? So this is something which I think you guys should be doing, and if you do it right from now, right from when you are young in your career in Python, this will also take you a long way in your career, right? Perfect. Next, I think it's the third point. The third point is very, very important here. It is the logic building skills. Wow. Logic building skills. That itself sounds like a challenge, right? But no, let me tell you this. Usually when if you can relate to this, it's good enough. Whenever I have spoken to a large crowd and I ask them how many of you do not like a programming language, and when people lift up their hands, I usually, of course, they're brave enough to lift up their hands because there's usually a minority of people who don't like programming in a programming talk, right? And I ask them, hey, why is it that you don't like programming? They say it's complex to learn and it's complex to use. Okay, I understand the part where it might be complex to use, but complex to learn, not really. If you have a structured way of learning with a language such as Python, which is making it easy for you in the syntax level itself, I think it is effective that, you maybe take a different approach to learn the programming language, right? And it's a really amazing thing that I do meet a couple of people. Of course, they're not into programming. Their job has nothing to do with the world of programming. These guys have some of the most fantastic logic building skills that I've seen in the entire world out there. And I say, hey, why don't you, try becoming a developer or something? Because this logic is what's required to solve the world's problems today. And it's fantastic. They have nothing to do with programming, but yet they have that skill, right? Now, you guys, either you have the skill or you don't have the skill. I think it is vital that you put some time towards developing this particular skills, because building logic, this is where most of your time will go, no matter what small use case that you're doing, a big demo that you're doing, or you're solving an industry level project, or you're taking on an entire client's project. That is where you will spend most of your time. But if you're really good at it, there's a good chance that you don't have to spend a lot of time there, right? So that's how you find ways of how to make your job more enjoyable. That is logic building skills. The fourth point here, the ability to scale up quick. This is for you all as learners. This is a skill you must have, is to understand that the world of programming is a really fast-paced world, and you have to have the ability to learn and learn and learn. It's not like you learn Python for 1 year and then you don't have nothing to do. You're not going to learn anything new in Python, and can you use it forever? Of course, with a minority of domains, minority of industries, you can use it forever. But at the end of the day, if you really want to step ahead in that game and you want those big salary numbers, you want that highly coveted designation, you have to have the ability to learn new things quickly. As I told you, every 2-3 months, 4 months, 5 months, or even every week, there's a new library coming out. Some of them will get really popular, some of them will not. You have to be the judge of it. You have to understand what is popular, what is not popular. Pick up the popular libraries, understand them, learn them. As a Python developer, you will have a fantastic salary. As a Python developer who is a specialist, thorough specialist in a couple of libraries which are needed to solve that particular company's problem, you will be paid. You could definitely be paid literally double if you were just a Python developer versus a specialist who knows everything there is to know about the language itself, right? That is what is required. And I don't know how many of you all are going to watch this video. I definitely hope a lot of you will. That I am sure that if you guys put in a good amount of time, all of you all have this kind of an ability. It's just that it's been dormant. You guys have not tapped that part of it because maybe you have never used a programming language. It is understandable. It is nothing bad. But right now that, I think you would have spent a good, 50-60 minutes on until getting to this point of the video. I believe that, you guys are serious and you guys will continue watching this, because at the end of the day, the next stuff that we're going to talk about is the one that is going to add the most amount of value to your time. It's the one that's going to add the most amount of value. In fact, I want to say to your entire Python learning career as of now, right? So guys, without further ado, let us actually get started on how you guys should go on to approach the Python programming language. Now, there's a lot of things here. Now, you guys might start to get a little, maybe a little afraid or something if you've never worked on the programming language. And I want to make it clear at this point itself that going ahead, that everything that we're going to talk about here, I have kept it really simple. Even if you are an absolute beginner who has never touched a programming language, if you follow all of these steps that we are trying to discuss, it's simple. It's 5 or 6 steps. That's it. But if you guys follow it religiously whenever you're learning the programming language, I think that it's going to add a lot of value, right? Because we've put in a ton of research to get to this point where we're giving you this kind of a approach of how you guys should be learning the programming language, right? So guys, perfect. Let's get started. All right, guys, finally now we're going to take a look at the most important steps that you guys will have to follow. And I do believe that finding all of these steps, attaching them in a simple way for all of you to understand has definitely been a challenge, because there is a million ways you can go on to learn anything, right? Be it a programming language or anything in general. When you take a look at it, there is never one way to learn, but at the same time, there is usually one really efficient way to go on to learn. And I believe this could be one of those efficient ways for you all, right? As always, with step number 1, I definitely think that you guys should be looking forward to understanding the fundamentals in itself. Now, when I say learn the fundamentals, let me give you a quick analogy of a building. Now, let's consider you learning Python to be a hypothetical situation where we are actually constructing a building, or you might have been at the construction of your house or anything like that. What happens when the foundation is not strong enough to probably build 3 floors, 5 floors, or even those really tall apartments, right? What if your foundation is not strong enough? What happens when you breach that limit? There is a limit. Once you cross that, even though until then your foundations were nice, things will start falling. Your building is not secure anymore. It could fall anytime. It could lead to a disaster, right? The exact same thing in the world of Python as well. If you are a person who is a beginner, there is a good chance. That's the thing about Python, right? With step number 1, I want to make it really clear is Python is a programming language that is deceptively easy. It is actually easy, yes, but it looks like it is easier than it actually is. Now, what I mean by that is, whenever you're learning Python, whenever you start to learn those first lines of code, you will usually skip the practical part of it, and you will usually only look at the theory side of things. This is common. This is not only in Python, it happens with many other programming languages as well. It looks so simple that there is a thought that will come into your head that will say, oh, it's only this much, right? I can do it. I don't think I have to practice it. It's probably a time waste, something like that. That's a very wrong thing to do. I'll tell you why. Because if you go on to skip these kinds of functional foundational stuff, which is going to literally be something that you're going to use for the rest of your career in Python, it will not be helpful for a long time. Because probably, yes, you can skip some examples, skip some simple demos, and you can go to the intermediate stuff, but you will go to a point of learning where you will have to constantly look back at the basics to relearn them or to understand them, how for loop works, how while loop works, or anything like that, right? But if you have the things covered right now, you will later won't have to spend months rereading and understanding the same things again and again and again. So you can save a ton of time there if you guys are very strong with the basics now. That is an important part of the first step. Let me tell you the second part of the first step. You will go on to learn the fundamentals, because if you guys tell me, you might have been to an interview, Python interview, you might have been into an interview where they're asking a programming language that you might have to know. Be it Java is the most common one, I think, or C++, right? There in the interview, they will never ask you a really hard question, or they will never give you a big project and ask you to solve it in the next 5 minutes. No, the thing that they're testing there is how strong you are with your fundamentals, right? We're gonna have a complete point. We have another step which discusses this in detail, but now I want to make it clear to you all that approaching those interview questions, if you have missed step number one, it is really tough. Yes, you're applying for a job which can probably pay you 12-13 lakhs per annum, even though you're a beginner, you're a fresher. You get to a point, you get to the interview, but it's hard to clear the interview because you think you knew a good amount of Python, but you didn't, right? Then there's a cool off period. You probably cannot apply for the same company for the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever their policy of cool off is, right? So you're losing time again. So without having really strong fundamentals, the only thing that you're going to lose is amazing job opportunities, some fantastic salary packages and brackets which you think you might not be able to attain. But yes, if you have strong foundations, talk to the people, connect with people, ask them what is their opinion about, maybe if you're applying for a software development engineer, SDE1 role at a company, talk to other SDE1s and understand, what is asked in the interview. Then you will realize, okay, so it seems very easy. So, let me just walk in without preparation. No, that is where again Python seems deceptively easy, right? So guys, the first step for all of you all, even though it seems extremely easy, please put up a good amount of time to make sure you guys understand how Python itself works. Now, what do I mean by when I say understand how Python itself works, right? There are many things that you have to understand in Python. The first one, this is all step number one still. The first step that I think you guys should definitely be putting a good amount of time to concentrate on is the basic syntax. Yes, Python is written in English language. Yes, Python is a very high level programming language. In a way, it's simple to understand even though you do not know Python. Yes, it is easy to learn even for a beginner. But hey, don't let this thing, don't let this factor of it being easy confuse you to a point where you stop learning things thinking that you might already know it. That is where people take the biggest hit, and they wouldn't know that they're taking the hit there. Now, I don't want that to happen to you guys. That's the reason that you guys should concentrate on the syntax itself. Understand why things work the way they work, right? If you say print, if you put a bracket, if you put two colons there, right? Quotation marks. It's a simple thing. Print, open bracket, quotation, type hello Anirudh, close it, close the bracket, done. But what you guys should be really curious about is to understand, hey, why is it that I'm doing only that? Why should I put a bracket for print? Why should I put the double quotes? Can I put a single quote? What's the actual difference? Where do you put single quotes? Where do you use double quotes? Why you have to use only the round curly braces, right? So these questions, when you start asking, there are ton of articles on the web for any question like this which you might have. You'll start building your curiosity about the language itself, and you're at a very advanced interview where some interviewer randomly asks you saying, why should you put only curly braces and why should you not put anything else? It will not add value if you say, hey, that's just the rules, that's the way the language is built. Correct, that is the way the language is built, but why, right? You have to give justification of why the developer thought of it that way as well. Usually, yeah, it's not asked in that level of depth, but if it is, you guys should be prepared for that. That is the first point. The next point is the input and the output operations, right? Yes, Python is a language which mostly you'll be taking in a lot of inputs, you'll be giving a lot of inputs to Python, and Python is going to use that function, do some activities there, process it, and give you some outputs. So this constant channel of you sending your data, or you giving an input to Python and getting an output is something you guys should be very strong with, because today with your learning, you might be considering really simple use cases, simple projects to go on to do this, but at the end of the day, it will come to a point where if you start feeding in a lot of data, you have to find the easiest way of how you can start inputting stuff so Python understands it in the fastest way possible for both you and both Python as well, right? So step number 2 is really, really important for all of you all to understand and concentrate upon how you guys can go on to, work your fastest at giving an input to Python, getting an output out of Python, right? It involves, of course, everything in between. The third thing in step number 1 that I want you guys to concentrate upon is the mathematical operations in Python. Now you'll be like, hey, I know math, 1 plus 1 is 2, right? So 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 divided by 0 is what? Yeah, that's when things get complicated. That's when things get fun. Mathematically, it is impossible to divide something by 0, and the same holds true in programming languages. As soon as you hit divide by 0, there is an exception that Python. So Python basically is telling, hey, this is invalid. This is not mathematics. What are you doing? So, right. And I think an important point here in step number 1 that I have to mention is, in my personal opinion, the error messages that Python gives is a lot cuter than the error messages that I have seen in other programming language. Other programming languages, the errors are something like, hey, you have made an error, fix it or not, I'm not going to work. Python's error sound to me like, hey, there is an error here. If you fix it, things are going to work fine. But until then, everything is executed, right? It's more cuter. It's more nicer, right? It's like a friendly dog that'll give you, that you can pet and play around with, and not like a wolf or something, not like a wild animal, right? This makes a lot of difference. I'm telling you why. It sounds funny because it's really important. When you're writing a long piece of code, if there are many errors, there's a good chance there's going to be a lot of errors when you're learning, or even when you're actually solving the problem. There you will tend to get really, really frustrated, right? So to make sure that frustration doesn't stop you from being more efficient, that is something that you guys have to know, that, hey, you're talking to a language, the language is talking back to you in a nice fashion. It's a comfortable fashion, right? That's an important thing, guys. Perfect. Look at the fourth item on step number 1. Fourth item on step number 1 is to learn the data structures. Data structures again. Interviews, especially for interviewers, data structures is like the most favorite subject in the entire world to ask. Even if they're hiring for a role where data structures is not required, they use it as a common way to filter off people among the crowd who know the stuff, who don't know the stuff. So you as a person should not be among those people who get filtered off just because you didn't know the basic data structures, right? Understand that, work on it, and know that the data structures itself in Python are really easy if you understand it. Work on it, but you have to know certain tricky concepts. Of course, I'm going to discuss all of these in the next steps, but I hope with this step number 1 is really clear for everyone. It's a very, very important step, and I want all of you all to make sure that you guys don't skip one pointer that I told you here, right? Okay guys, now as I told you, it's really important to know that first of all, Python caters to all of this domain. The second thing is to make sure that you guys have to find one domain that you guys have to work on. Now, when I say that, it is truly hard to tell that out. Now, maybe you're a person who started learning Python and you do not know what domain you want to get into, right? Today, you're very much passionate about web development in Python. Tomorrow, you might change towards data science as well. You never know. But with step number 1, since you already would have covered a good amount of the foundations, at step number 2, you have the freedom to actually choose between domains, right? Now, there are multiple domains we spoke about, and you can go in any of these domains, even healthcare, and you guys will definitely have the amount of advantages that maybe another different programming language expert might not, because that language doesn't cater for that domain, right? So how should you go about doing this? How should you go about tackling step number 2? To tackle step number 2, the most important advice I can give you is just find out what is your favorite domain that you want to work in. Is it data science? Is it data analytics? Is it like 100 different things? See if Python is doing really well in that domain. And if Python is doing really well, find out the library which is helping really in that domain. For example, for data science, we have libraries like NumPy, Pandas, Scikit-learn. We're going to check all of those libraries out. These are the most popular ones. So if you learn that, you're one step closer to having that job in that domain, right? So Find your favorite domain. That is literally my advice here in step number 2. And to ace step number 2, that's what you have to do. It can get confusing for a beginner, I really understand. Again, if you have any comments about this and if you're looking for some help about what domain you should look for as well, I think you guys should head to the comment section and put down your views there, and we can go on to discuss it there, right? Perfect. And I'll be more than happy to help you out there. But to talk about a bit of step number 2, I think it's really important. The first step is to, yes, choose your domain. Find one thing. If you can jump later, that's the best part. For now, find something, maybe data science. So let's think about the hypothetical situation of data science. Get started with data science, understand how Python supports the world of data science, search for all the popular libraries there. If a domain has 10 different huge libraries like how data science has, you don't have to become an expert in all of that. Understand the basics, just good enough to get you a working functional knowledge of that domain, right? So finalize on these couple of libraries, work on them, learn them. Now, learn them is a very easy thing to say, but you're all here to find out how. So here's the how part of it. Whenever you're learning new libraries and especially a new domain, my advice for you all is to always take the practical approach, right? It's almost like you guys jumping in even though you don't know swimming, and you're being thrown off on the deep end and you're asked to swim. You guys will swim, just that you're scared to jump, right? Make that jump here. Take a look at some demos and take a look at some projects which you may not be able to solve right now. You might not understand a thing. But looking at that, you will be curious enough to understand, hey, how can I use these similar techniques in my own learning to actually go on to work with this library, right? That knowledge cannot be taught. That has to come with experience, and this is how you get that experience, right? Learn all the libraries, do it practically, pick up practical demos which are out of your, I'm not saying 100% just pick out everything which is difficult for you. Then it'll get demotivating and you might not be able to continue with the language because you're not able to solve the problem. Don't do that. For every 6 problems you can solve, probably pick up 4 or 3 which you cannot solve and try your really best to either build the logic or use the programming language or learn the library. Do something to push, right? Because there's a limit that you guys have to push for every programming language, and the limit with Python lies here. So you really, with step number 2, I believe that it is going to add a lot of value for all of you all if you just give it that extra and use a practical approach to learn, right? So that is step number 2, guys. Step number 1 was fundamentals. Step number 2 was picking your domain. What do you think is step number 3? Step number 3 is again the heart of any programming language, not just Python. It is data structures, data methodologies, right? Data is literally at the heart of any solution. You might say, hey, I'm working on a very simple project. I'm not using any data at all. You are incorrect. You're using a small amount of data and it might seem significant or common around you, right? Now it's such an easy thing to turn on your laptop. You hit a button, your laptop is on, right? Now back in the 1960s, to turn on your computer, an entire neighborhood would have been powered down so that the computer has power. The size of the computer was the size of the room I am sitting in right now. So it was a really big thing, but now it's a button's press away. You can take your laptop wherever you want. I think Apple watches are like powerful enough to do like a lot of different things which you probably couldn't have done in the past. So again, that's a train of thought that you guys have to understand, that even though it seems like it is a simple thing at the start, there's definitely a lot to do going ahead, right? So with step number 1, I already gave you a hint into step number 3. We spoke about how data structures is the most favorite aspect of any interviewer out there, and I think that adds value. I myself have been to interviews where they grill you left and right on data structures. So with Python especially, the data structures are a tiny bit complicated compared to any other languages. Of course, there are other languages with complicated data types and data structures. Here, in the case of Python, it is confusing because with some data types, you can add more data as and when you choose, and some data types you will not. That's called as mutable and immutable data types. There is a lot of opportunity for the interviewer to ask you confusing stuff, and at that moment when you're sitting in the interview, you will be confused if you do not have the practical knowledge to power up your theoretical learning, right? That person will ask you something about a non-mutable data type, immutable data type, where you cannot add data into it. So you definitely will think at that moment, the question will be asked in such a way that you are definitely confused and you will say, yes, I can add data onto it. In the reality, that will not be the case. So for the interviewer's perspective of it, he or she will think, okay, this person is not strong with the fundamentals itself, so I don't think it's worth to go into depths, right? So that is where the filtering happens, what I told you. If you are strong with those data structures and you usually clear the round where data structures and the technical stuff is covered, I think there's a good chance you're going to land the job eventually, right? So that's the thing. So with step number 3, the most important points that I think you guys should really be concentrating upon is to learn mutable and immutable data types. This is the concept in Python for fresher jobs that it gets really confusing for people when they're answering the question. Of course, you can take your time to answer questions in the interview, but at the end of the day, if you're giving out the wrong answer and you're really confident about it, that portrays a wrong thing for the interviewer, right? But having the right confidence when you know the answer is right is again a huge advantage for you. That is what I want all of you all to do. Look at the second thing here. We're talking about data indexing. Data indexing is a really fancy, fun concept in the world of Python. Indexing is like, how would you, if you had to make a list of groceries, how would you do it? You'll put number 1, buy milk. Number 2, buy Cheetos. Number 3, buy Lays. Something like that, right? When you're shopping. In Python, if you were to do it, you would start with 0, buy Lays. 0. No, sorry, it's 1, buy popcorn. 2, buy ice cream. So you're not starting from 1, you're starting from 0. Every data element in Python is indexed with 0. So the first position is 0, right? So it's a different thing. So when you look at a car race or a bike race, how is it usually 1? The person who comes first is the winner. He's number 1, right? If you were using Python in that scenario, he'd be number 0. And that still means 1, but just that here, instead of counting from 1 to infinity, we count from 0 to infinity, right? So the first place is 0 here in Python. You will know this probably 2-3 days into your learning with Python. In the first step itself, you'll clear all of this. You will be confident enough to know that all these start with 0. So if A is a list or an array, A of 0 will give you the first place. A of 1 will not give you the first place, but it will give you the second place. You will be clear with this. And again, practical experience is required there. The third thing is the favorite of Python interviewers, because at the end of the day, if you clear the data structures aspect of things, next they'll start to ask you a bit of the tricky questions. With the index position, right? Index, you can have one each index, as I told you. If you have 10 elements, you can pick one of them that you want. But then if they ask you questions like, if there is a list, how do you pick the last element of the list? How do you reverse the list? How do you go on to replace each element by this, right? A common example can be that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those 10 digits in an array form. I want you to remove all the even numbers and I want you to stuff 10 everywhere there is. Now to solve this, you have to know how, first of all, Python will understand what even numbers are. There's a mathematical logic for that. You have to look at the reminder and all of that. Once you know that there is a mathematics out of it and you can write the Python program for it, next you have to write the logic that is used to replace these even numbers. First step, find the even numbers. Second step, replace these even numbers out with whatever is required and you're done. Right? So these kinds of tricky string operations, tricky index positions, there is an index position. If you put a colon and put -1, right? It is literally talking about flipping the array. If you just put double colon and if you just put -1, you're literally talking about flipping the entire array and bringing the last element to the first one. If you're indexing the location -1, you're actually talking to the last most element that is present there. So you'll never figure it out if you look at it in the English perspective. Someone in the -1th position doesn't mean that they were last in the bike race or the car race. But in Python, that is what happens. If you have a list, if there's a last element that you have to look at, -1 is the index that you're going to take a look at. -2 will bring you one more step to the left, right? So there's so many things like this, which you guys should be clear of, especially, in step number 3. I think really at this moment in time, it has to be an important thing that you guys should be concentrating upon, right? Perfect. Now, with this comes step number 4. I think step number 4 is really a fascinating one, because at the end of the day, when you take a look at it, if you follow step number 1, 2, 3 religiously, you will come to a point where you have the basics really strong. Now you can build good logic. With step number 3, you respect data and you work with a good amount of data. You know the data structures, you know a library, you know your favorite domain. All of these will be done. But with step number 4, to improve in your career, to keep things challenging at all moments of time, you will actually be looking towards other domains and learning something new. Now, when is it that you get to learn something new? When you talk to people who already know it, right? For example, if you've joined my live sessions here at Great Learning, or of course anyone's live session here at Great Learning, we keep reiterating the fact that we ask you to subscribe to the Great Learning YouTube channel. We reiterated 2 or 3 times because it is highly important that you guys are notified as soon as when we put out videos like these, or when we have live sessions. There you get to interact with us experts right now. As I mentioned at the start of this particular video, it's not just me, it's all the subject matter experts here at Great Learning. We will make sure to provide the highest quality of learning possible from our end, and we are going to also give you and align your learning with what the industry requires exactly. In that particular case, it's the same stone, but you're getting two birds with the same stone, right? So it's literally a huge advantage, for all of you all, if you're considering this kind of a thing. Learning, of course, I'm not just saying you have to learn from Great Learning. There's a million places. A simple Google search which says learn Python is going to give you 10 million results by the time I did that again, right? I'm doing that a lot. So that's the thing. Knowing how to learn, knowing how to approach problems are a fantastic thing. At this moment of time, you will actually be ready to explore into your first job, or try to give your first interview or something like that. My approach is, whenever you guys go on to take these interviews, when you go on to understand learning new things, is first of all to spend some time to understand what it is that is going on in the industry. When you say I want to become a Python programmer and you start on it, you will start doing your programs. You don't give a bother about what's happening in the trends. Yes, to a certain extent you can do it. You can get started. So when you go to a point where at the end of the day, if you are not aligned with what is required in the industry, it's like two train tracks. If you go parallelly, both of you will be fine. If you're taking a left turn but the world is moving on the right side, either you are going to become a millionaire or a billionaire entrepreneur, or things might not work out the way you're supposed to. That's usually when the train splits into two, right? I'm not saying that you have to do this, but in my opinion, I definitely think if you work towards the trends, there's a good chance that it's better. It's a quicker and a faster and an easier way of how you guys can become experts in those domains. That's an important thing that I thought I'd mention. Next, look at the second point. It says learn to work with a brand new library. Yes, learn a new library. If you're very good with working with a data science library, do something very different. Find a web development library and start learning that, and try to work on that to see if you can do something there which at the end of the day can add a lot of value for your learning as well. Of course, your job might still say, hey, use a data science library, but you learning that web development library will expose you to certain techniques, certain ways of how you would approach data which you have never done before. That learning is the make it or break it difference that will take you from being a good programmer to being a great programmer. So that's an important thing I want you guys to understand at this point of time, guys. Perfect. Look at the third thing in step number 4. Third thing talks about how you're going to take up small use cases and projects with the new library. Of course, once you have learned a web development library, I'm not telling you to build the fascinating best website out there in the world right now, but pick up, understand the basics of Flasks, understand the basic of Django, try to see if you can build something. That is the goal of using a library, not just learning how to use the library, but building something. Having an outcome based approach when you go on to learn is extremely important. So do that. And of course, as in when you start finishing these tiny projects, you will want to push more. You will be very interested to go on to check more, and that is exactly when you guys will be interested to take a look at bigger projects, because if you're very good with smaller projects, you'll be like, okay, I can do this. What's the next challenging thing? So you're going to start picking up on that, and that is the most fantastic thing. We have another step to go on to discuss that, which is step number 5. So guys, with this particular step, as I told you in terms of programming challenges, once you finish these small projects, you will definitely want to look towards the bigger projects. It can be not just with another library, which is something out of your domain, but also in the library that you guys are working for, right? So it becomes extremely important that you guys continuously push to learn to take up challenges. Now, challenges are fun things, especially in the world of programming, because at the end of the day, the most simple programming problem will be the trickiest and the most challenging one to solve. This happens in interviews, and if you have gone to a Python interview, you can relate to this, I'm sure. they would have asked you a question. The question would be actually very easy to approach. They just said it sounds very difficult, and once they give out the answer from their side, saying, "Hey, this is the answer," you'll be like, "Oh, I knew this," or some. You'll be very surprised to know that it was something really basic that you didn't know, right? That is the important part that I don't want for you all. Even though these questions seem simple, they can get tricky, and I want you all to spend a good amount of time tackling these so that you don't have to sit in an interview to figure all of these out, right? Perfect. The second thing that you guys have to take a look at is all the challenges that are present online, all the challenges that are present in the community space out there. There are websites like LeetCode, there's websites like Kaggle where you can do a lot of programming challenges. Data sets are put out for public use. There's competitions where there's actual money involved as well. You can work to whatever extent to either solve the problem or to find a problem in the existing problem, and still you can actually start making money by solving these problems as well. The best part is, even if you're not very much interested in that money at that point of time, which is very difficult for a beginner, you guys should be looking at the acclaim that you're getting out of challenging those, right? So there are sites like HackerRank, there are sites like LeetCode, there's sites like Kaggle where you can take up challenges, and at the end of the challenge, if you solve the problem that was given to you, you'll be given a badge. You'll be given some sort of a metric that the world knows. For example, if you got a gold star in HackerRank for Python, that is showing the world that, hey, you're really good at Python, or you're doing something there, right? So back to back, if you're pushing these challenges and if you're coming out at the end of it with these acclaim badges or something, put them all on your resume, because if you're looking for a Python job, trust me, that is going to make a ton of difference, and you can tell the world, hey, this is what I've learned. There is, every time you put an acclaim badge or something like that on your resume, if the interviewer is pretty intelligent, he or she is going to always ask you saying, okay, what is it that you learned there? They're appreciative of the fact that you've mentioned that you've cleared some sort of you have an acclaim there, but what they will be interested in is to know what you rather did in that program, what it is that you learned, than just showing a certificate, right? That is what is really important that you have to work on. So have the answers to that also ready. Now, if you say that, hey, I am this particular rank on LeetCode or something, or I've solved these many challenges on Kaggle, the immediate follow-up question will be, what is it that you learned from that? So have an answer ready for that. Have an answer ready saying, if someone asks you what it is that you learned from these challenges, tell all the technical things that you learned. Tell all the non-technical things that you've learned as well. Technical things can be that you had a challenge which you've never worked before, you've used a library which you've never used before. The non-technical things is that you worked on an out-of-the-box solution, you had the logic building skill to actually build logic in a domain which you've never worked in, right? So I think you guys get it, right? I'm getting carried away here, but you get how important. Out of all these steps, step number 1 is the most important one. Step number 5, I think, has to be the next really important step for all of you all, because without programming challenges, without pushing yourself to find tricky stuff and answer them, it's just that every question you take on ahead, it's going to be tough. So this is a step which I want all of you all to concentrate upon, guys. Next, coming on to step number 6. Step number 6 is really fascinating. It's an interesting one because this is where you are going to be spending a good amount of time preparing for that job. Now, until step number 5, I did give you a good amount of hints if you all are learning Python to have a career in it. But then if you're a person who was a casual programmer or an enthusiast until now, I'm sure you've got a lot of value as well. But with step number 6, I think we have to talk to the audience here who are looking forward for a job in Python, right? You will have a fantastic career in Python. Let me tell you that. Like right now, I am having a fantastic career in Python, and so do 9 out of 10 other people that I know. I know thousands of people in this particular domain, and everyone love working with Python. But then to get that job, to land that job, you definitely have to use some, a different approach of learning than what everyone else does. The first thing that I highly will suggest that everyone should do is to know everything there is to know about the company itself before even you know everything there is to know about Python. Because when you're being interviewed for a company, they expect that you have done some good amount of groundwork. They're not asking you all the details that you have to know, but understanding what problem that the company or the industry is trying to solve and how you can fit in to solve that problem. If you can word it out verbally in a very strong and a confident way, 90% of the time you've literally cleared that route, because they know that, hey, this person is here on a mission, the company is on a mission, both sort of coincide. The train tracks go parallelly enough, right? That's an important thing. The second thing, when you're approaching a job, of course, the first thing all of you all should be doing is using all the resource material out there that you can learn. Interview question blogs, interview question videos. For example, signing up on Great Learning Academy, we have a lot of career prep solutions there as well. So doing everything is the first thing that you're supposed to do. But the next thing is, let's say, you found your dream designation. Maybe it's something at Facebook. Reach out to a Facebook employee on LinkedIn. Try to connect. Leave a message, right? Saying, hey, I'm applying for this role. I want to know a bit more about it. 90% of the time, let me tell you, you will hear a positive response, and people are, because they are looking for another person onto the team itself, right? So they will be welcoming you there, even though you have not even touched the interview aspect of it. They will give you a good amount. It's not like they're going to tell you the entire interview process. They will tell you what you should expect so you can prepare for it better, right? Instead of learning everything, maybe they'll tell you, hey, you know what, concentrate on this library a little because we work on it a lot, and I think your interview will be based on that as well. So there you can spend more time on that library. It's literally like a cheat code, I want to say, of how you can get ahead of your competition. It's nothing illegal, it's nothing wrong. Of course, it's nothing illegal until you don't cheat throughout the process of the person helping you and all of that. But yes, you get the point here, right? The third thing, which everyone that I've ever talked to or in the shows I go to do not give a lot of importance to, is your resume. If you are a Python developer, your resume has to be really, really, really crisp. You cannot go on to write stories on your resume and expect the person on the other side of the table to read it. That never happens, trust me. So whenever you are building a resume, what everyone does that I've seen, or the majority of the people, is they build one beautiful looking resume. Yes, it is really nice. It has your photo. It has a lot of graphics, everything done, and they start sending it to every single company out there. It might work. Yes, I'm not saying it'll never work. It will work. But at the end of the day, if you're sure enough that that's the job you want and that you're passionate enough to go get it, you should customize your resume for it. Align whatever you're putting on your resume exactly to what the companies are looking for. I'm not saying you should cheat. I'm not saying that you might not know the library TensorFlow, but the company wants TensorFlow. Just put up in bold that you're a pro in TensorFlow. Don't do that. That's not right. What I'm trying to say is understand what it is they want. Learn those things that they want and eventually put it out on your resume. Word it out in a way that as soon as they read it, they're like, hey, this is exactly what I want, and this person knows that. So yes, good, right? So that is how you get ahead of the competition even on a non-technical side of things. So customize your resume, send out individual resumes which are updated based on what the company is looking for. Learn those concepts before putting them on your resume and then send them out, right? That's an important point. I'm sure you guys might not have thought about it. It's not a bad thing, but now that you've thought about it, I want all of you all to work on it, right? Perfect. Look at the last step. The last step literally is the foundation of step number 6. It's speaking about how you should be thorough in your domains whenever you're asked about anything here, right? If they say that you're being hired as a Python developer for data science, you will have to know libraries like NumPy, Pandas, TensorFlow. If they mention that specifically that they're looking for an expert in that, make sure you're an expert in that while applying for that job. Because if they specifically mention saying that you have to be good at something, there's a good chance they're going to use that thing day in and day out for that particular job role. So you have to have thorough knowledge of whatever it is that is. It is not just reading the roles and responsibilities, flicking everything, putting on your resume and saying you know everything. No, putting down the hard work there. Here is a fantastic thing which you guys might not know. There was a case where my friend was taking this exact approach that I told him. The open position eventually got closed, right? So he was applying for a post. He looked at the roles and responsibilities. He was preparing for it, 2-3 months of prep. Then he went on to apply again after learning everything, and the job was already taken. Guess what? He actually reached out to the HR of the company and said, hey, I was looking for this. I was very keen on it. I've spent a couple of months prepping for it. Is there any chance I can walk in for an interview where you guys might want to consider me as a valuable resource? At the end of the day, let's just say he has an amazing package right now, and every time we catch up for some food or something, he's really grateful for this kind of an approach that was given to him. I'm not trying to brag, or I'm not trying to say that if it weren't for that, he wouldn't have landed a job, nothing like that. I just gave him an advice saying, hey, try to take this approach, learn it, even though if it's in closed position, reach out to someone in the company that can get you an interview for that role. There's a good chance if you grab the attention of the company that, you might get in. And that person, I think this was a talk 2 years back, and that person is still in that company right now. That's really a fantastic thing, and it adds value. It is little proof to show that this method works. And it's not just one guy, I have a lot of people who have gone on to use similar methodologies in similar situations, which has helped them immensely. And I think step number 6 is going to help you all as well. With step number 6 at the end of it, if you followed it religiously, over the next couple of months, I think you definitely should have, if you worked really hard, if you have all the skills that we talked about, I think at this moment of time, you might have a job in your hand. But is that the end of it? Absolutely not. The salary surge for an intermediate Python developer is huge from a beginner's salary. If a beginner is getting a salary of somewhere, I'll just give you sample numbers. If the beginner is getting 10 lakhs per annum, the intermediate guy will be getting 20 lakhs per annum, double of what the beginner is getting. And a project manager will be getting thrice or 4-5 times what a beginner would be getting as well. So how do you get from being a beginner developer all the way to becoming an intermediate developer? This is the difference. Innovation, right? You have to always keep learning. I'm not saying day in and day out spend 10 hours to learn new things. No, you will probably have your office work to do, but spend half an hour or maybe 1 hour to learn something new and see if you can first of all integrate the new thing in the company that you're working for itself. It is highly appreciated, right? Now in a company where there might not be any DevOps policies, I have seen people implement and say, hey, I think we can use DevOps policies here, and that took off, and that's working fantastically for that company. Same thing in another companies where people were using another programming language, someone suggested that they could make a jump to Python. Of course, switching an entire programming language for a multinational corporation is really tough. They were doing it slowly, and I read somewhere, I don't want to take up names, but these guys did it, and right now they are having a fantastic journey of how simple Python has made things for them, right? So this is something which I want all of you all to do. I want all of you all to learn new libraries in Python. I want all of you all to try to use Python on other platforms, right? Maybe today you are a person who is a data scientist and you know Python. Use data science, use Python, and see if you can use it really well on the cloud computing platform. So you're bringing 2 domains together, 3 domains: Python programming language, data science, cloud computing. If you learn all of these 3 together, your salary package goes even higher, because companies will look out for people who know Python, who also know cloud computing as well, something like that. Of course, there is not like thousands of openings for that, but there are, every now and then there's an opening which comes up which asks for 2 different domains. And if you have this kind of a domain, maybe if you're jumping from your current job, you can ask a really big raise, and that raise amount will be given to you if you know what it is that you're being asked of, right? Perfect. The third thing is something which is very difficult to do even for a professional developer like me, is to explore a new IDE, right? So integrated development environment is where you actually sit and write code. It's the user interface that you use to write code, and sometimes you get used to interfaces like PyCharm, Jupyter Notebooks, Google Colab, all of these things. Once you have to switch, even for a pro developer, it's not like it's a difficult thing. It's just that it doesn't feel like you're at home anymore, if you know what I'm saying, right? So it is okay. That kind of being uncomfortable using another IDE is very important, because there's a good chance when you go to an interview, when you're given a laptop to solve a simple programming challenge, there's another IDE sitting there which you've never used before in your life. So there you might be stuck, and you might start asking, like, it's okay. You can say that, hey, I haven't worked on this IDE, I don't know how to navigate around it. It's okay. But if you're completely clueless and blank about that IDE, it becomes really tough, right? So I don't want you guys to do all of that. I want you guys to explore new IDEs and tools and to be at the top of your game. And whenever you're putting together your resume, whenever you're putting together your portfolio, now I am a person who's an expert in data science, so my portfolio is usually around the world of data science. But if trends keep changing, I can always take the portfolio car in another direction and try to see how best I can use my data science learning in another domain. For example, cloud computing, right? For example, we have a full course on cloud computing that is coming out soon as well. So in that particular case, or by the time you would have watched this video, there's a good chance it's already out, right? So there again, we are jumping around domains to see how best we can bring our learning from one to use to the other in the actual corporate situation. If you do this, again, a bigger salary, right? So guys, these were some of the really important steps that you guys have to go on to know when you're working with it, right? Now let us quickly rework on some of the most important thing that you guys have to check out. There's some colors in blue here as well. That is again put in there for a purpose. Step number 1 was to learn the fundamentals. Without strong foundations, you cannot expect good jobs. You cannot expect to clear interviews. You cannot expect to learn even to an intermediate level, even if you're an enthusiast. So please learn on your fundamentals. After that, we took a look at how you can have 100 different domains where you guys can find one to go on to learn. Stick to that and eventually learn that, right? That's an important thing. The third thing was, when you are actually working with the data, have a passion towards it. Know that there are so many things you can find from data which you cannot if you look at it with the naked eye. But if you use Python can predict the future for you and your company with the data at hand. That's how important it is. So work on your data, work on data structures, the most important thing there. Step number 5 was learn new things and push yourself with programming challenges. The keyword challenges there is highlighted for a reason. Yes, I want all of you all to get on Kaggle. I want all of you all to get on to Lead Code. I want all of you all to take up courses on Great Learning Academy, to look at the career path, to complete all the quizzes that we have for the free courses we are offering as well. So I want you guys to be pushing in every direction that you can, right? And with step number 6 talks about job preparation. This is exactly when you'll be learning the tricky questions. You'll be learning for resources, using how well you can go on to prepare for interviews, be it interview questions, be it blogs, be it videos, be it 100 different things, right? So you will have to give everything that you have in point number 5 and point number 6. And once you go on to a step where you know the language, you can go on to begin some sort of innovation with it. That is exactly when there's a lot of value that gets added to your life monetarily, and you as a person who's using the domain to solve the problem, right? So guys, this was a quick recap of all the 7 important steps that I wanted to give you all of how you guys can go on to learn Python. Now quickly, I want to show you guys what the Python syntax talks about. Now it's almost it's almost been, I think, 1.5 hours or 1 hour 45 minutes that you guys are watching this video and you haven't seen Python syntax yet. I'm not gonna teach you about working of the syntax. We have multiple tutorial videos to do that, but for now I just want to show you guys what the syntax and what an IDE looks like, right? For example, here I have in front of you Google Colab. Google Colab is basically a place where you can go on to run Python code. All the processing power required to run this piece of code, right? You're going to require some hardware to do it. It's all on the Google Cloud platform. This is completely free to use, and I just have 4 simple snippets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 snippets that I want to show you guys. I promise it will not be more than 5 minutes, but I want all of you all to know this, right? The first thing I'm going to talk about here is comments in Python, right? Whenever you're learning a programming language, you will always hear this in all the advisory videos, that whenever you're writing code, make sure you have comments there. Comments literally are lifesavers, right? It is literally like having a lifeboat when you are jumped in the middle of the ocean and you have nothing to go on to hold on to. It is extremely important, right? I cannot emphasize more on how much you guys have to use comments. Comments can be single line comments, multi-line comments, and all of that. A simple hash mark. Think about it like your Instagram hashtag. As soon as you put your hash here, everything you write in that entire line just becomes a comment. Python will not execute comments. Python will look at this and it'll understand, okay, this is for his reference or her reference, let me leave it alone. And Python will even leave out comments if it's alongside the things that it should execute as well. So what Python will execute is literally this line, and this line. Now you guys might not know what we're trying to do, but can you take a guess? I say x equal to 3. Okay, mathematically you know x is equal to 3 right now. Then I say x is equal to x into 3. What am I saying here? I know that x is 3. So if I put this 3 in this place, 3 into 3 becomes what? 9. Then I'm saying print x. When I say print, what am I usually trying to get? An output. So I am asking for this output from Python. So Python is supposed to give me 9 as soon as I run this. Of course, it will not give me any of the comments. Comments will not execute. Look at that. It's 9, right? There's a good chance you would have thought about this even though I have not explained it, or I just gave you a very, very brief explanation. This is the magic of Python. I'm not telling Python that this is an integer. Python understands it on its own. It knows this is the command it's not supposed to execute. It knows how it has to print it out, and it does in a very, very simple and an elegant fashion to work with. Right? I love seeing the basics of Python because we really don't get to work on this level of basics, right? Perfect. Next, when you take a look at the variables, right? I have multiple variables here. Look, the number of laptops I have is 3. I actually have 2 laptops, but it's okay. It's 3. Let me change it to 2. Let's have that. Perfect. Then owner name. Look, this is not a number anymore. This is my name. My name is Anirudh Rao. This is my name, right? So this is not a number anymore. This is a string, but I'm not telling Python that I'm giving a string. As soon as I give this variable name, there are certain rules for variable names, as you can see on the comments below, but I'm not telling it specifically that I'm giving it a name. It knows that I'm giving it a name as soon as it sees it, right? First, let me run this. As soon as I run this, it should say number of laptops equal to 2, owner's name equal to Anirudh Rao. Perfect. I can change this to anything. If I don't want Anirudh Rao, if I just want Anirudh, simple. Let me change that and let me hit play again. Anirudh. Perfect, right? Look at this. It says variable names begin with a letter or an underscore. So that's what, right? It's all begin with numbers. It's all beginning with either letters or underscores. There are rules of how you can name variables, and all the variables in Python are case sensitive. So having a big A is a different variable from having a small a, and I want all of you guys to know that at this moment in time, right? So I'm not going to dive into the depths. I don't want to, maybe get you beginners confused or something. Let's quickly take a look at the mathematical operations. Now, guys, this is something that you all have to do. This is really basic stuff, math stuff. A is 10, B is 6. So what is 10 plus 6? A plus B. 16. So when you print 16, it has to output 16 there. What is 10 minus 6? 10 minus 6 is 4. Done. What is 10 into 6? 60. What is 10 by 6? Now, this is an interesting one. We're going to take a look at it. What is 10 modulus 6? Well, this is an even more interesting thing we're going to take a look at. What is exponentiation? What is A double star B? 10 double star 6 is talking about 10 to the power 6, raising 10 to the power 6, right? Let's execute and let us look at the division and the modulus one in a keen way. 10 plus 6 is 16, 10 minus 6 is 4, 10 into 6 is 60, and you can look at this, right? 10 divided by 6, it's giving you a huge value. So this is a value 1.666, and that 6 goes on forever. But Python realized at one point of time it has to not show you like a million sixes. So it just rounded it off to 7 and said, hey, this is the value, right? So Python did that for you. And next, the modulus operation. So 10 by 6 is 4. 10 modulus 6 is 4. How? Modulus is basically giving us the reminder. If you put 10, divide 10 by 6, 6 ones are 6, and 6 goes into 10. It doesn't directly go into 10, but it gives you a remainder of how much? 4, right? That is exactly what you see on your screen right now. And what is 10 to the power 6, right? How many zeros are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 10 to the power 6 is 1 followed by 6 zeros. That's exactly what you see right now. That's 10 lakhs, right? Perfect. The next thing we're going to take a look at is logical operations. Logical operations are really, really fascinating because it literally talks about logic. I'll explain. A is equal to 5 is a variable. B equal to 8, another variable. Perfect. Look at this line. The comment says this will return true if both the conditions are true. First of all, let's look at one condition. A greater than 3. How much is our A? It's 5. Is 5 numerically greater than 3? Yes. 5 apples is more than 3 apples, right? So this is true. And is A less than 7? How much is A? 5. 5 is less than 7. That's correct. So this is correct and this is correct. So since both of them are correct, we'll have an output for this called true. It will say, yes, you are correct. Next thing. So this will return true. We are using an OR operation here. This will return true if one of the conditions, either if one of these is true and one of it is also wrong, it will work fine. Is A greater than 6? Absolutely not. A is 5. 5 is less than 6. So this itself is wrong. But is B less than 7? B is 8. B is not less than 7. So even this is false. So eventually the total output is false. But let's make it true. Let's go on to put it as 6. 6 is less than 7. So this or this is correct. This will be true. This will be true. The next one is the NOT. Logical NOT. Logical NOT is really interesting because it's confusing as hell sometimes. If you take a look at A greater than 3. Is A greater than 3? A is equal to 5. Yes, right? The answer should be yes. But as soon as you put a not in front of it, you are reversing that entire thing. So this is as good as saying is A not less than 3, right? So I mean, at the end of the day, if I hit print, you will realize that it will give you true, true and false. Even though A is greater, 6 is greater than 3, we are reversing that condition by having that logical not, which says, nope, sorry, if it is true, if it's false. If this condition was false, the output will be true. That's how logical operations work, right? And then this is going to be the last code snippet that we're going to take a look at, guys. User's input. I have a variable. This is how easily you can go on to give an input in Python. One line. Remember when I told you about the start of the session? Literally one line. Let me hit play. As soon as I hit play, it says, where do you live? I live in Bengaluru. Where do you guys live? Right? I live in Bengaluru. As soon as I hit enter, it says the city you live in is Bengaluru. This is like, this should excite you as beginners. If you have never touched a programming language, you're supposed to be really excited now and realizing that it's only really simple. I'm not going to talk about the syntax, all the details, what a slash and escape sequence, all of that. No, but understand that you can do it and you can do it in a fascinating and a really easy way, right? That's literally all the demo that I wanted to show you guys. I think there's a million things that we could have done right now, but there's a good chance you might get confused as a learner. We have multiple Python tutorials that you guys can use, right? And that exactly brings us to one particular aspect quickly before we go on to check about how you guys can learn further is the popular Python programming packages out there right now. There's thousands of Python packages out there, and to think about the ones that you guys really should be using, I do believe that usually whenever people learn packages in Python, it's usually these basic libraries, and then either they align towards data science or they do something different, right? So I'm going to give you an example. If you're looking at data science, NumPy and Pandas, again, open source libraries, fantastic one. NumPy is used for numerical computation. Pandas is used to provide data structures like series and data frames, which are extremely important in the world of data science. I can tell that another 100 times. And NumPy will give you this matrix operation, array operation, all of that. Pandas will give you data structures to store all of these, work with it, perform statistical computations, numerical computations, all of these things. So NumPy and Pandas is something which is probably the most used Python packages in the entire world right now. And for you to learn them, yes, you can. I absolutely love working with them, and I'm sure you will as well. If you're a person who's very much interested into machine learning, into deep learning, into artificial intelligence, the packages you see on your screen right now are the reasons why Python is popular there. TensorFlow is a fantastic machine learning, deep learning library out there right now, and this is developed by the people at Google. And then you have PyTorch. PyTorch is a fantastic library developed by another big giant, Facebook. So all the developers at Facebook came up with a library. It was called Torch. But since Python is being used to work with the Torch framework, it became PyTorch, Python Torch, right? That's PyTorch. Then, if you're a person who is really interested in understanding machine learning, scikit-learn is literally the library on your right. This one is literally the foundation, the basic. Without scikit-learn, there is no machine learning in Python. That is how important it is, right? So, if you are into the AI scene, you definitely can take a look at that. And here's another two fantastic packages which I think you guys should check out is Matplotlib and Seaborn. Matplotlib and Seaborn both are data visualization libraries. So they take in your data, they will give you an output which is a graph or something similar to that, right? So in that particular case, I think it is extremely important for you all to know. Seaborn is basically an addition, a better version of Matplotlib which contains more features. But at the end of the day, there's many things Matplotlib can do that Seaborn cannot, and Seaborn can do that Matplotlib cannot. So as a person who's a data scientist myself, I think learning these libraries were really fun because you can take a look at a million numbers. It'll absolutely make no sense. As soon as you create beautiful looking graphs out of it, it's literally magic. You can see a lot of insights which you never can do as soon as you look at the raw data, right? So Matplotlib and Seaborn are some of the libraries which all the beginners learn, and I think you guys can go on to explore that as well. Right? Perfect. Coming to the aspect where we go on to talk about the Python developer salary, I think guys, you are very curious right now. So without further ado, let's literally just jump in to understand that. These roles are fantastic. They're high paying roles. Even for a person who's coming from a non-technical background, who knows Python, who can get started with Python, who knows the fundamentals, you can get a job which will pay you somewhere around 6 lakhs per annum in India and an average salary of $66,000 in the USA. With 1 or 2 years of experience, you can become a senior Python developer to get an average salary of 10 lakhs per annum, and in the US, it's somewhere around $100,000. 3, 4, 5, 6 years of experience, you'll become a lead project developer where you'll probably be managing a team and managing Python development there. Average salaries goes up from 20 lakhs per annum, and in the US, it's somewhere around $116,000. Here's the fantastic thing though. Right now, the trends are changing in a way where I know associate Python developers who have got jobs in the last 5 or 6 months who are making at least 12, 13, 15 lakhs per annum. I know senior Python developers who have got jobs 25, 30 lakhs per annum. And I know leads who are making 45, 50 lakhs per annum in the world of Python right now. Those are not outliers. Those are not the rare cases. That's literally what the world is ready to pay if you know all of these things that we mentioned. So religiously make sure you guys are following all the steps that we spoke about. Make sure you guys are taking a look at all the skills, and don't leave it at this. This is your first step to becoming an expert in Python. Use it to learn further, right? That is exactly, what is required at this moments of time. Because let me just actually go back to the salary slide again. I want you guys to see the salary slide again, because with this, ladies and gentlemen, it becomes really important for you to understand that the numbers you see on your screen are an average of the lowest and the highest salary that was got. This number is literally shifting to the higher averages right there. Probably 4 or 5 years before, from now, the average Python developer's beginner salary was 3 lakhs per annum, and in just 2 years it's almost doubled. In the next 2 years it'll double again. It'll just go on exponentially eating like that. And probably in the next 5 years, if Python is in so much demand as it's predicted to be, the average beginner salary itself can be somewhere around 10-11 lakhs per annum. If there's so much of requirement in the world, and Python is great at doing what it is, and I believe it will be great at doing what it will, because right now it is showing immense amount of future proofing, right? So guys, with that, you have come to the end of this session. So using these steps, you guys definitely should be ready to go on to learn Python. Going ahead, there's multiple places of where you guys can learn Python. Here at the Great Learning ecosystem, you guys can go on to Great Learning Academy, a fantastic place. If you've come till this point in this video, I want all of you all to click go to Google, type Great Learning Academy, look at all the free offerings. We have 200 plus courses you guys can learn for free. I want all of you all to check that out. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the Great Learning YouTube channel, because if you subscribe and hit that bell icon, every time we put out very informative videos like this, I mean, of course, every video we put out is extremely informative. We do a ton of research before giving you all of these content out there, right? So we are giving you the highest possible learning material. It is always really nice to see your appreciation in the form of likes and shares. So guys, make sure you guys are liking the video, showing us all the support. It means a lot to us, and it is not just you showing support to us, it will tell us that you guys want more of these content, so we can give you more of these content, right? So guys, with this, again, to reiterate, make sure you guys are keeping your learning high. Everything you learned until now is the first step in your Python career. Even though we checked out 6 steps, you're at the fundamentals right now. Use all the learning material we have at Great Learning Academy. Check out Python tutorial. We have complete end-to-end tutorials on our YouTube channel. Get started there, start learning, and with that you can take your learning ahead and have a fantastic career, right? So guys, with this, I wish all of you all the very best. I definitely have confidence in all of our dear viewers here that all of you all can definitely pick up on all the skills that I've mentioned. You guys can follow all the steps that I've told you, and you guys can have fantastically high paying roles and really good jobs in the career of Python. And I cannot wait to welcome you all to the Python community as well, guys. So if you guys are beginners, I hope this video helped you a lot. Definitely do show us your support by hitting that like button. And with this, the pandemic is still on, guys. Please make sure you guys are wearing your masks. At the end of the day, make sure you guys are taking all the safety measures required. Keep your learning up and be ready to have a fantastic career in Python, right, guys? With this, I'm more than excited to see you on the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this helped. Cheers.
I want to introduce you to Great Learning Academy. This is a free initiative by Great Learning where you can have access to over 200 plus courses with 1000 plus hours of free content on all of the trending high demand domains, absolutely free. Register now to complete the course and get your free certificate of completion as well. Check out the link in the description box of the video below for more details. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. This is done to make sure you do not miss out on any of the new updates or video releases from Great Learning. And of course, guys, if you enjoy this video, show us some love and do like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, right? So make sure you share this video with your friends, colleague, and everyone who can make use of it. And at the end of it, make sure to comment on the video if you have any queries or any suggestions, and I'll be more than happy to respond to all of your comments.